Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Tuesday, so I got another Tuesday talk with you. This week, Vicky from VidaWithVicky. Vicky has been around my channel since day one of my original subscribers. I was so excited when I got the opportunity to speak to her. We both started channels around the same time, then she had to take off because she had a baby, but now she's back in action. If you've never heard of Vicky, please check the description below. I'm gonna post all of information. Check her channel out, check her Instagram out, and consider subscribing. I hope you enjoy this Tuesday talk with Vicky from VidaWithVicky. Hey Vicky, how are you? I'm so glad to finally be talking to you. This is a whirlwind for me because you have got to be probably one of my first subscribers ever. I think besides when I used my work email and my other work email and my business email and got myself 3 subscribers, you must have been right there number 4 since day one. So thank you for that. You definitely are a name that has been around and you've seen my entire progression. So thanks for sticking with me this long.
No, I'm a huge fan.
Coming from San Francisco right now, you're in the Bay Area?
Yeah.
Oh, so you're in your lunchtime and I'm getting, it's still, even living on the West Coast, well in Arizona when I lived on the West Coast, it's the time zone's still fast. It still like trip me up that like people are having lunch and I'm planning on dinner. But how are things on your end? Everything's been well?
Good. Good.
Your channel just is growing and growing as well. I mean, you started August 17, right before I did, and you know we had similar growth. You were cruising along, but I mean you're much busier than me. You're a new mom, so you took a little bit of a break over the last couple months. But I think last I looked, you were just over 300 subscribers, which is super awesome.
Yeah, it definitely, I think, and you probably can attest to this, growing in YouTube, you need to be consistent and you need to put out quality stuff, right? And so you've been doing great.
Thank you.
But I definitely, like you said, had to take a step back and unfortunately, or fortunately, had a baby.
Yeah. Baby's a good reason. Baby's a very good reason.
Yeah, I had to take some time off of work, and I found being on the subway, I would use that time to like go on Instagram and like, edit videos for that hour, and that kind of, I stepped away from that for a little bit, but I'm trying to get back in.
All right. And for anybody that's never seen your channel, I want to link everything below so everyone's gonna be able to find you. I'm actually waiting to like see you angry because your voice, like you went to law school, and I can't imagine your voice being like angry because you have such like a soothing, pleasant voice on YouTube that I could never imagine you being angry. So one of these days I got to secretly hear you yelling at someone so I can hear that. But pretty much want to talk about your history for those that you don't know, because you did an awesome video right in the beginning, and you pretty much learned as a child about the quote-unquote Dave Ramsey system before it even existed. I mean, you said that your mom was a living testament to the envelope system, and that she pretty much knew that when the money was gone, it was really gone. There was no options for the credit cards and things like that. Can you just sum up like real quick for some people that may not have seen that video, like what I'm talking about?
Yeah. So I grew up in a Hispanic first generation family. Both my parents are from Mexico. My mom was pretty much raised here. She was about 7 when she came over, but my dad was older when they met, and we lived in a 1-income family. There was 4 kids in total, but for the most part, 3 of us were raised together, and then my 4th brother came. I'm 12 years difference in age, but my mom was a stay-at-home mom for about 13 years until my little brother came in to the picture. But like I said, like Brad was explaining, we lived paycheck to paycheck. My dad would cash his checks every Friday, and that's all we did was live off of envelopes. My mom would just cash the checks and put money in envelopes and squirrel away and save. And I think it came from the mentality that both their sets of parents were migrant farm workers. Okay. And we really had to think of that famine and feast mode, right? Because when they're working in the fields, everything's fine, but then winter would come. If it was, they didn't have sick days, or no one was going to pay them if it was raining cats and dogs. So they really had to think ahead and squirrel away money. The other thing that my grandparents, after doing that video, I thought that I didn't mention was my maternal grandparents would, they bought a deep freezer, you know, like those really big ones.
Right.
And my grandmother would buy 2 chickens every week, and one she would save for the winter, and one she would, you know, make for her family.
Wow.
So I thought that was really such a great thing. You see that in the Instagram community, the debt-free community, talking about like zero food waste and shopping their pantry and their freezer, but my grandma was doing it.
So yeah, you learned the importance of budgeting like firsthand.
Yeah.
Like, and it wasn't like you were, I said, this is one of those cases where you guys weren't trying to get out of debt. You guys were trying to live. And I think that's something that makes your story super unique. And another thing that you mentioned, which is super interesting, is that your mom, being that stay-at-home mom, was kind of what drove you into going to college, because, you know, you didn't necessarily, quote unquote, want to live that stay-at-home mom life. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, she looked miserable. That's what I always say. Like, she gets mad when they say that. But it just didn't paint a pretty picture. I'm sure she was happy and fulfilled, but from my perspective as a kid, we were driving her insane. And, you know, she, in that time frame, it's not like women today where we go out with our girlfriends and get pedicures and have alone time and, you know, and have our own time to ourselves. That really wasn't the mentality, at least in my culture, of what women did. And so she didn't have time for herself. She was immersed with Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers and Barbies and, you know, Tonka trucks, like poor lady. So yeah, so it really gave me an example. I hate to say this because I think my mom's an amazing person, but it really made me not want to be a stay-at-home mom, and it made me want to like pursue something that created my own identity. So I felt like my mom have her own identity. Okay.
And I remember one of the things you said that really impacted me in one of your videos is that college wasn't expected for you, and you know, you were put in a position of, am I quote unquote smart enough for college? And I kind of relate that back to the getting out of debt thing, because I think a lot of us, you know, say, can I ever get out of this debt? Can I ever get out of this hole? When in that college process did you realize, wow, I am smart enough for college? And have you or have you not used that mentality when it comes to getting out of debt as well? Like looking up at that mountain of debt and saying, I have to just keep this simple and do one thing at a time, and then eventually that time, you know, will be on my side.
Yeah, that's a great question, Brad. If I was very honest, I'd say I didn't know any different. Like when you're poor and you're raised the way we were, you're scrapper, you know, you just try to make things get accomplished. But having said that, I really didn't think I was that smart. And I think it goes back to culture, gender, and also what teachers and administrators did or didn't do with me. Okay. And I could only speak to my own journey, right? But no one dangled that carrot or showed me that I could or couldn't go to college, because I didn't even know it was an option. And because I'm first generation, I was the first grandkid on both sides. I didn't have cousins to emulate, or really even aunts and uncles to emulate, because everyone was so much older than me. So it was really just kind of the blind leading the blind. I was trying to figure it out. But as a result of all of those years trying to figure it out on my own, I really do feel invincible. And I know that no matter what God throws at me, I will get it done. I will persevere. I think everyone has a little story of the engine that could, right? And talking about perseverance is, I think everyone can relate to it.
And speaking of which, you did graduate, and
I did.
that's primarily where a lot of your debt had come from. And it's in your video, you kind of laughed as you said, you know, but I'm not a lawyer. Is that something that you laughed about on the camera? Are you happy not being a lawyer, or are you, because I know a lot of people that go to college and don't use their degree. What was your path away from being a lawyer? Did you find a better option, or something that was going to be better for your family? How'd you graduate and then not actually become a lawyer?
No, thank you for asking the question, because you're right, I didn't address it, and I probably should even do a video on it. But for me, I worked in law firms. I actually worked for the same lawyer in undergrad and in law school, and I went to law school at night, so I went 4 years at night. It's a long program. Most people do 3 years full time, but I had to work to put myself through school. So I worked for him, and he was a sole practitioner. We did wills, trust, conservatorships, and we mostly, dealt with death and estate plans. We also did some corporate work, and I really did enjoy it. The thing about that type of law is it's very niche. It's very, it doesn't bring in the buku bucks that most people think of when you think of someone who is a lawyer and is going to make 6 years. And I mean, that man that I worked for was a sole proprietor. He had 2 employees. I was his 3rd employee, and he was really, running a business. And unfortunately, you find lawyers that are either really great at doing the law, but not necessarily good businessmen. And unfortunately, that's the case. So I tried to go work at a big law firm, and it just wasn't for me. Like, I found that I could still use the law in other ways in my career. And so I did research on what you could do with a law degree. And so I became a law librarian, and that seemed to work well. And then I met some vendors that sell into law firms and got recruited into this company. And I worked for that company for 12 years. Wow. And I loved working there. Unfortunately, they had a restructuring and my job was eliminated. So I had to recreate myself. I feel like I'm constantly recreating myself.
Well, being on YouTube, you're definitely, I feel even in the short time that I've been involved, I continuously have to evolve, and it's become so fun for me. And, I think we all start these YouTube channels with, a goal in mind or a purpose. And like I said, these talks, I really want to focus on the people. And I said, I can't say it enough how interesting your story is to me, especially, I grew up in the white of the white, and, it wasn't until I moved to Arizona and I lived in a Hispanic neighborhood that I really learned the differences in just culture. And, you spoke about how your YouTube channel was, designed to be there as a beacon for somebody else that may be in a similar situation or come from a similar background as you, because when you were going through and you were looking for that inspiration on YouTube, it really wasn't there for you. So you fill an awesome void that was kind of being shown in the debt-free community. And have you seen that impact? Have people come back to you and said, like, I'm first generation as well? Or, has that been successful for you? And is that still the goal right now? Like, is that still what your mission statement is?
Yeah, I really need to define that mission statement, because you are right. There are people that come back to those videos and write me comments about, like, this is exactly my story. This is how I was raised. And I love that. And I feel like I need to tap into that more. I've had some comments asking me to do videos in Spanish. I don't feel confident in I speak Spanish, but I don't feel like I'm book Spanish, like my brother. I have a brother who's a Spanish teacher. I feel like he could do the videos for me. But I still want that to be my mantra, only because you're right. When I first started doing research about how to get debt free, I was finding all these videos, and it was great, and everyone had a lot of information that I loved and has helped me. But I didn't see someone who represented me or who looked like me. And I kind of just wanted to feel some kind of kinship to that. And it's no slight on anyone. You just kind of want to feel like you have your crew, your people, And I'm hopeful that people who find me feel that.
So you're pretty much posting, people can expect pretty much a once a week from you, and the general, budget type videos and things like that. Is there going to be grocery hauls and things like that? Are you pretty much happy being a mom and happy, you have essentially a newborn still, and, are you essentially just happy being a mom and just sharing your story and letting it organically grow over time?
Yeah, I'm definitely not going to do grocery hauls. I don't have time for that, but I do want to get to a more steady schedule and share kind of just tips and tricks that I've learned. Someone was telling me we should do like in the Hispanic culture, and I don't know if you learned this in Arizona, but there's a lot of home remedies that were just kind of passed down and handed down, and I think that would be cool to share.
Mm-hmm.
Home remedies. Also, weekly videos on some kind of finance budgeting related topic, but not necessarily grocery hauls.
Well, no, I mean, like, I think, like I said, every time you post, I'm excited to see it. And obviously being on, I see people evolve and do different things. So if you try something new, even if it's in Spanish, I'm going to watch and I'm going to listen. And, I mean, that's pretty, I know you're pretty much at lunch, and I know this is your nap time, so I'm sure this is your personal time, not your nap time, but when your kids are sleeping. But I like to give anybody the opportunity. I put you in a hot seat for 20 minutes. You have any questions for me? You got to try and stump me somehow. Baby Seven of Freedom got me pretty good the other day with her stumper question. Yeah.
I would say, Brad, because I don't know what the demographics of the school that you teach in, so I'm curious what the demographics are. And I know that when you do your YouTube lives, you sometimes get students in.
Mm-hmm.
And what would you say, like, for creators and people like us who are doing these videos, we're going to have kids that stumble onto these videos. What could we be adding to our videos that helps that demographic or that generation?
So I actually teach in what would be considered high income. I'm on the North Shore of Long Island, it's a very, very nice area. I would say primarily a Jewish community, very, very hardworking students. A lot of them, and one of the hardest things about my job is how hard they are on themselves. This is the third school I've been in. I was in Arizona, where I went through many extremes. I went from Arizona, where the parents didn't even know their kids were in school. And then I started teaching in Flushing, Queens, here in New York. And we had the issue where the parents knew the kids were in school, but I would call and they would say, oh yeah, whatever. To coming here, where the parents have to call me and say, how do I calm down my kid? You know, like how, because they're so, the stress they go through to be completely the opposite of your generation and even the end of my, like, I didn't think that I had to go to college, and I didn't think that defined me. These kids, they do now. And I think when they found out about the live streams and some of them come in, you know, they asked me about it. I spoke to them. I said, you know, behave yourself. And they were like, is it okay if we come in? And there's a couple of things that I think I could bring to them. You know, the first thing and the reason why I let them in there is to know that I'm a regular guy. I've made mistakes. I continue to make mistakes, but I continue to learn from them. And I continue to just treat people kindly and work hard. That's my mantra in the classroom. And that's what I live by. You know, be kind and work hard. And as long as you do those things over time, it's like the stock market. You'll be okay if you work hard and you're kind. And then the other thing that I let them in is I have a lot of students that can't necessarily relate to me 100%. And, you know, when people are in the live stream and they start bringing up topics, or I say something about them, or even in these talks, you know, a student might see it and say, wow, I could really relate to that person that he was talking to. Or Kelly and I had a long discussion about, you know, her Weight Watchers videos and things like that. And maybe I have some young girls that are struggling with weight, or, you know, maybe they could find another avenue. So the reason I like to involve them, and the reason I hope they stumble upon me, is because we're a web, right? And even if they click through me and get to something, or they click through me and they get to, you know, see something, or even if they just click to me and they see that, you know, I'm a regular guy, I think that's really it. You know, I'm very lucky. And I've been all the extremes, but I learned something too from the kids every day that they don't even realize. Like when I lived in Arizona, I learned a lot from that Spanish community. And when I taught in the city, and I'm a Long Island boy, and I'm from the suburbs, they didn't even want to know a Long Island person. Like when they found out I was from Long Island, I might as well have been a preppy, you know, tennis player with a sweater tied around my neck, you know. So they taught me a few things as well, and now I'm here, and I thought it was going to be a parent issue, like parents always breathing down my neck. It's calming kids down and saying, listen, you know, today is going to be an okay day. You know, it's not the end of the world. But so you seem to always talk about your husband and talk about your family. You saw I did a video where I did the secret life of a YouTuber and the secret life of a Dave Ramsey follower. Are you a closet YouTuber? Are you a closet Dave Ramsey person? Or do all your friends and family know that you're trying to get out of debt?
So I'm totally in the closet. Well, not totally. My husband knows about it. And I don't know if he's watched any of these videos. Actually, just yesterday, we were talking about, amongst my brothers, we were talking about YouTube, and they were joking that someone had a YouTube channel. And so I just threw it out there. I said, oh, well, I have a YouTube channel. And my brother's like, everybody has a YouTube channel, and just kind of dismissed it. So I thought, oh, that was weird. But I totally am anonymous. I try to like not have my picture, showing, just in case someone finds me, because all these algorithms that Instagram.
You changed your picture.
I did. I freaked out.
You changed because somebody found you?
Totally. Yeah. So I need to change it back because I do want all the marketing to be the same, right? So YouTube, Instagram, because right now my Instagram handle is VidaWithV, even though it's VidaWithVicky on YouTube, and I really should just leave it all and just be me, do me. But I'm a little. I think it has to do with the whole tiny shovel versus big shovel that we talk about in the debt-free community. Right. And I'm always. And I don't know if you feel this way, Brad, but I'm always a little hesitant because I'm like, oh, we make all this money, but we have all this debt. So
I think that there's definitely a relative. And it's kind of like why I did the cost of living is a myth video. And, I feel my wife and I, we have very, very good incomes. And at first I felt like that, but I work really, really hard. And I've paid my dues in the teaching community. I commuted to the city, and that's kind of like what we do here to earn our stripes. And I've been teaching a long time, 15 years, pretty much. This is my 14th year. And I thought the same thing, and I didn't want people to criticize me, but I learned very quickly, because I was closet in the beginning, and I learned very quickly that we don't have anything to be scared of except for ourselves. And then when I finally came out and told my friends and family and told people on YouTube, I had close friends and family actually come to me and ask me for advice. And I still have friends, this was probably a month and a half ago, right around the time I released that video. And I still have people that come to me on a regular basis. And my neighbor Tosh that comes in the live stream, she pretty much started the baby steps because I posted something on Facebook. And nobody's criticized it. I mean, my friends bust my chops like the boys like to do sometimes, but if I could give advice to not only you, but anybody that's like a little worried about it, what's the worst they're going to say? Wow, Vicky makes all this money. It's like, yeah, well, Vicky went to law school. Vicky has to make all this money to pay off all of those debts. Vicky lives in the Bay Area. Sometimes living in the Bay Area can be a little expensive. So, I mean, it's all relative. And I made a video, and one of the things when I saw somebody do a debt-free scream, and their house was worth like 50 grand and people were giving them a hard time. I'm like, they're in the middle of the country, where property taxes are low and the price of property is low. They had a $50,000 house, but their combined income was only 40 grand a year, 50 grand a year. So it's like, I mean, right now my combined income is the size of my mortgage. So if we look at relatively speaking, I should be able to pay it off just as much as them. And I try to look at it now from a more educated standpoint of that. Like, it's all like that, just like banks try and figure out when they give you loans, it's that debt to income ratio. And Dave says, like, build your shovel. Like, your income is your greatest tool to build wealth. Now, am I very fortunate? I make more money than the national average? Yes, but I don't feel ashamed of it. I worked really, really hard for that, and I don't think you should be ashamed of it either.
Yeah, I think you actually inspired me to share real numbers when you first started your videos, and that made me feel better for those reasons. And I think one of the things I was worried about was I never want my family to feel like I think I'm better than anyone, because I definitely don't feel that way. No, yeah. But I don't want it to come across that way. But they know I went to law school. I think they just assume I make a lot of money. But no one knows your debts unless you throw it out there. And no one talks about their debt and their finances.
And I mean, and it was a little easier for me too, because my salary is public information. You can literally Google my first and last name and my teaching salary, and they posted in Newsday, which is the local newspaper every year. So that made it easier. But like, if you look, I just did my net worth video. I blacked out some things, mostly out of privacy for my wife, because although I might be comfortable, she's not. And also too, out of respect for my business partners, you know, so there was the things I black out when I show my real numbers are things that they're not mine. Like my income at the brewery is not just mine. It's my partner's and it's my wife's. So those are the only reason. But yeah, I feel like I want to be an open book, and I'm not going to be ashamed to, you know, talk about when I'm out of debt and I'm making money. I shouldn't be ashamed now.
Yeah, no, and you know, as a result, one of my brothers, we started talking to him about Dave Ramsey, and we were watching one of those live streams, you know, the Money and Marriage, I think it was. We were telling my brother that we had watched this, and so he did a quick Google search on who, because in my culture, no one knows who Dave Ramsey is, and so he did a quick search, and just this last week, no, 2 or 3 weeks ago, my brother and sister-in-law became debt-free, and it was all due to us talking to him about Dave Ramsey. And I don't know how many months they did it or how much their, you know, debt was.
But they did it.
Every time he paid something off, he'd be like, hey, I just paid this off. I'm like, yay, you know? Yeah, so it's kind of cool knowing that you're influencing other people's futures.
Yeah, well, I unfortunately have to, speaking of student loans, I have to go to grad class that I cash flowed. It has been so nice talking to you. I really appreciate it. The more of these I make, I want to release them quicker, but you know, I think this is really good. And if there's nothing else on your end, like I said, I can't thank you enough. To reiterate, you've been around since day one, and I appreciate that. And I know there's other people around, and the new subscribers are great, but you really know Brad. You've been around, and I appreciate you very much, and what you do for me and how you make me feel, especially in the early days when I only had 20 subscribers or so. So thank you so much, Vicky. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Vicky, thanks so much. What an incredible conversation. I feel like we could have spoke all day long. And for everybody else, once again, all Vicky's information is down in the description below. Check out her channel, consider subscribing, and until the next one, have yourselves a great day.